What is going on, you guys? Today I have another quick episode for you. This one is from a guy named Mike Chang. So I have a set of very short videos here that I'm going to show you, and he's a very health conscious, fit guy. He's got a very interesting mindset. So let's just go ahead and hop into it.
My entire life, I strived to be the best that I could be. I wanted to let go of self-doubt and be more confident, to go after what I really wanted instead of holding back because of other people's judgments of me. I wanted to fully show up the way that deep inside I knew I could. But when my son was born, I realized something. By constantly trying to improve myself, I automatically saw myself as not good enough, lacking something, incomplete. I realized that I unconsciously judged myself all the time, just to see if I was improving or not, because deep inside, I wasn't okay with who I was. 2 months before my son was born, I had an epiphany. The only thing that actually mattered was that my family is taken care of. And when my focus changed from what I want for myself to what do I need to do to serve those that I love, something miraculous happened. Suddenly I wasn't afraid anymore to fully show up. I stopped doubting my skills and knowledge. I stopped caring about what other people thought about me. I stopped blaming and complaining, and instead, I started to work harder than I ever have. I was able to challenge myself on things that I never was able to do before. I ended up letting go of the inner resistance and fear that held me back my whole life, and now I have become the best version of myself. If you're struggling...
Okay, so you might have noticed in that video, you can see a bit of a transformation, and he's talking about some realizations that he had. So he used to be a part of a big fitness channel called Six Pack Shortcuts, and I'm not really sure exactly what happened there, but I actually used to work out to his videos about 10, maybe 12 years ago. I had no gym membership, so no access to like all the typical weights. I just had dumbbells and then body workouts, basically. I was working out at home. So he was actually very helpful for me. And you can tell some of those other videos, it's him about 10, 12 years ago when I was working out, right? And he is very buff, bodybuilder type, right? And he started opening up into different things, like different methods of stretching, mobility training. He focused a little bit less on the bodybuilding. You can see in there that he was on the Steve Harvey show. I never really watched the show. I know it's pretty popular, but he's a very interesting guy. I mean, you can tell he has some very interesting mindsets. Like that point that he made, it's really good to continue challenging yourself, right? That's a part of life, and always improving, being better than you were, 1% better every day, that sort of thing. Now, he made a really good point about the self-improvement stuff. You can maybe get, I don't know if I want to say too carried away with it, but you have to find a place within yourself where you have this acceptance, where you can be authentic or authentically yourself, genuine, and actually love yourself. I know it sounds cheesy, right? But once you actually love yourself, all the validation and things are internal, right? You can approve and validate yourself. You're not seeking it elsewhere, right? Oh, I finally got that job, and people are going to congratulate me for it, or I'm finally got that house and this thing and that thing, right? Oh, this romantic partner, I got someone who loves me, all the external validation. And of course, some of that stuff feels good, but it's almost nothing if you can't internally validate yourself. That's a whole different superpower, and that's basically what he's talking about. Is he had this feeling of lack, so always felt the need to essentially prove himself or impress others, versus just changing and improving to challenge yourself and become better for yourself, right? Not for the external validation.
To release trapped emotions from inside your body, it's because you're not going deep enough. There are 5 things that you need to do to ensure that you're able to go deep enough inside of your body to release emotions.
By the way, so he was probably around, I would guess 30 or so when you saw some of those other videos where he was like a little bit more bodybuilder looking. But I mean, you can tell, right? Like it really helped him out because now he's about 41 or so. And this is the kind of thing, like you increase your bone and muscle density, you can hold on to that getting older. So it's really beneficial for you to train consistently and in healthy ways, right? So early on, like get started as soon as possible, and then you can maintain, continue to develop your training strategies, right? Like that he's gotten a lot into like more holistic things and mobility, and that's what he's going to show you here. But I mean, I think he looks really good for 41.
From the past. The first thing is vibrating and shaking the body. Doing so allows you to be able to increase the energy circulation and get the energy moving. The second thing is doing strength training. Something like doing push-ups exerts the body so we're able to go deep inside the muscles to literally force that energy to come out. The next thing is stretching. Something like doing a pancake split elongates the muscle, stretches it out, so this way we're able to release emotions through stretching. Next thing we do is breathing. So we take deep breaths into the body. This breath, this oxygen, goes deep into our cells, deep into the flesh to move energy that the vibrating, exertion, and the stretching couldn't get to. And the last thing we do is meditate. We close our...
So one important point there is like, number one, the meditation, like in the breathing, like a lot of us don't do enough. Like, and you can tell when someone like gets angry easily or frustrated, upset, right? And usually it's because they're not really breathing enough. Like actually deep breathing through their nose. It's not really going to help you the same way if you're always breathing through your mouth. I know it sounds funny, but like it's true. I mean, you'll just notice a difference if you try it for yourself now. Just consistently breathe through your nose. Deep breaths, not shallow breaths. And then whenever you have something that might make you frustrated, just deep nose breath, right? Easy. You can basically avoid any sort of frustration that way, and or mediate it, like calm it down. And I mean, he's talking a lot about like circulation, right? Like getting your body very like fluid and mobile. I mean, this is going to help a lot just with your overall like how you feel, and then your mental health as well.
Our eyes, we take our attention into the body, and then we feel the emotions that we brought up to the surface. By doing so, we get to connect to the sensation of these emotions, and by doing so is how we're able to release it. If you don't fully feel that emotion, that sensation, you will never be able to release it. So
that's actually a really excellent point. I mean, basically, like people suppress their emotions, right? And they like sweep it under the rug, right? So basically, instead of actually fully feeling it, like he's talking about, fully moving through it, they avoid it. Like they go around it. So it's like in a cartoon when like the character like shoves everything in their closet, but their room is still a mess and their closet just like bursts open, or like sweeping it under the rug, pushing everything under the bed, right? It's not, you haven't actually cleaned your body out, right? You've still got that trauma or those emotions there, so you actually have to fully address it and feel through it till you get to the point where it's easy for you to navigate, right? You can navigate things healthily in your daily life. And also he I mean, basically he's talking about this in terms of your body, right? Like feeling through the emotion and also moving, because your body actually traps emotions, right? And so like if you're not consistently moving, you're becoming mobile, fluid in the right way, right? There's a book called The Body Keeps the Score, and I'll be really honest with you, I have not read that book yet. It's on my list, but that phrase should tell you enough right there. Like that's one way, I'm sure it's in the book too, that's one way that the body keeps the score, right? Is all your like your past traumas, your past experiences, they're held, right? And whether they're positive or whether they're negative, like something that affects you still today, right? It's again like you swept it under the rug and it's still there, right? So you actually have to address it. So like this is really important to remember, because like your body, if you're not releasing these things through movement as well as feeling through the emotions, it's just going to remain there for your entire life until you finally face it.
This is why we always meditate at the end of every practice. This is how you do tap massage for beginners if you want to start tapping your body today to increase the circulation in your body, increase the energy, and get everything flowing. So number one, where do you start? What area of the body? Start from the feet, work your way up into your lower body, about the mid-waist, and then work your way down, okay? Keep going up and down until you cover everything in the lower body. If you can't reach it, well then, don't worry about it, okay? Now, what do I do with my hands? You can do a slapping with my hands loose. You can do a cupping, which is universally the easiest and the most, is the best one. But you can use a fist as well. You can even karate chop or even peck, all right? Okay, so now, after you do your lower body, do your lower back, stomach and sides, chest, down the side, down the neck and traps, down the back side of your arm, and then do exactly the same thing on this side.
By the way, I've heard of tapping a few times, like it's called tap massage, but I haven't looked into it too much myself, but it's essentially the same. It's part of solving the same things here, is loosening your body up, becoming more fluid. I know it might look funny, right? Because people even do like exercises where they're like jumping and like getting like really loose, or I used to do that. I had like a shoulder injury, and my chiropractor actually recommended sort of like a very fluid, like basically letting go of your tightness in your arms and your abs, right, like your torso, and just like twisting. So basically you were like letting go of some of that tightness, right? And that comes exactly with what he's talking about. Like you want to start getting into that. It's actually good for trauma as well as just, feeling better in your body, kind of like loosening up some of the muscles. Like, it's just kind of a funny thing to think about, but you've seen someone like tenderize meat, right? Like a sirloin, like a steak or something. It's effectively like the same thing. Like you're loosening it up, so it's not so like this.
Okay, as well as the head, ears, and face. Okay, so how often should I do it? Do it 1 to 2 times a day to start. And how long do I do it every time? Work for about, I'll say 60 seconds, okay, to about 2 minutes, but listen to your body, okay? And remember that you're gonna do this every single day. So if you didn't get a lot in yesterday, you can do more of it tomorrow. Try it out, guys. How do we know that we have fear on the inside? The way we know is we are not happy with ourselves. We want to be different. We want to be better. We're not satisfied with the way we are. We want to be like somebody else. We wish we were in the future already so we can have accomplished the things that we want to accomplish so that we can feel better about our own life. When this is happening, it is a very clear sign that we have emotions of fear, emotions of worry, lack on the inside. And because of these emotions that are on the inside, it makes us see ourselves as less. When we release these emotions, we gain a clarity of mind, and then we no longer see ourselves in a state of lack. We have now inner peace. We now become centered. We now stop looking at how we can improve, and we start to look at how we can contribute to others.
And that's sort of goes back to what he was talking about at the beginning of the video, like doing everything out of lack versus abundance, not needing to like impress others, like caring about what other people, caring about other people, but not what they think, right? So not doing everything, all this self-improvement for external validation, but rather to improve yourself and then moving out of scarcity to abundance. So basically it's not let me get this validation, it's let me help people, right? Like how can you provide values or contribute to others, like you mentioned, basically.
You know how
help
to get
others.
the best night of sleep? Is it sleeping on a nice bed, or is it sleeping on a mattress topper? My answer, neither. It's actually sleeping on something that's more of like a furry, thin rug, because the surface is much more firmer. our bodies need to lay on things that are firm because we want to be able to have this pressure onto the body. Now, what is the ground doing right now when I'm laying here? Isn't the ground pressing into my body? Or you can say my body is pressing into the ground. So now what's the difference between laying here like this versus feeling good and getting a massage? Concept is the same. If we sleep on a harder surface, we're able to massage our body throughout the entire night. Okay, that is how you're able to release a lot of the tension in your body, release the toxins, and also get your body to be strong, to be able to handle harder surfaces, because we live in a physical world. And you want your body to be able to be in contact, to handle contact with tough surfaces. This is how your body can remain strong and healthy. So start changing the way you sleep by sleeping on firmer surfaces right away. And by the way, guess which one I sleep on? This, right here.
One of the things you move on from.
So something interesting about what he was just talking about, I'm not sure like the thickness level that they do it, because that rug that he's sleeping on, there's like I think like a small layer of foam under it, but that's about it. And in terms of like Japanese, right? Some of you might know this, but I've seen like I mean basically like in movies or shows, stuff like that, like in Japan they essentially do that, right? I'm just not sure the level of thickness of the pad that they have on the floor, because usually it seems like they're not really sleeping on a bed, they're sleeping on something on the floor. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and say this. It seems typically that the Japanese are more healthy, more youthful than a lot of Western places. And so take that for what you will, but that's probably one element that adds into that. One thing I will say, because, you know, it's funny, like, if you haven't seen anything like this before, you know, Mike might seem like a little bit like out there, but I mean, all this stuff is stuff people have been doing for a long time, like the tap, right? And the mobility training that he's doing, like the tap massage is like ancient Chinese techniques, right? So there's a lot of things that he's tapping into, you know, like all the very fluid like body movement. Like it might look funny, or like when he's talking about the sleeping on the floor and someone's like, "Oh, that's crazy, bro. Like just get a bed." You know, he's doing stuff that a lot of people have been doing for a long time, and he's just tapping into that to optimize his health. Like you can see he's gone from like this bodybuilder guy to consistently tweaking and optimizing his health over time. And there's another video where he's talking about deciding to sleep that way before, and he was basically talking about the intro to it, right? Like he said, like, you know, he got done like bodybuilding, like heavy weightlifting one day, and he was sitting on the ground and trying to find a position that was comfortable, and he even like laid down, and it was all uncomfortable for him. And he was like, "Why is this? Like, I'm so strong in the gym, right? I'm so strong like lifting things, like helping people, but when it comes to like the outer world, I'm so weak." Right? I thought that was like a really interesting thing that he said. And he said that that's how it led him to sleeping like that, because he realized that he was essentially getting some form of massage by sleeping on that firm surface. And I think we've all met someone who's done that and not really known why before. I remember like when I was younger, there was always a friend who was okay with like sleeping on the floor like that. Maybe they didn't know it or they hadn't realized it yet, but you know, it's just a funny thing, right? Like he was feeling a lot of pain at first from like sitting down on the ground or laying down on the ground, and then because he got used to it, his body actually loosened up a lot more, and there was no pain. Like it was less pain from sleeping, there's less pain in his body from working out. So I mean, it seems like another way that he's optimized things. So I mean, as you can tell, a very interesting guy. And I just have one last video for you here, and we'll wrap it up.
One of the things you move on from past trauma is you stop thinking about this trauma. But when we don't think about the trauma, it's like we kind of put it underneath the rug. We just don't think about it, but it's still there affecting us, right? So first thing to do is at some point you're gonna have to face the trauma. But when you're facing a trauma, the idea with trauma is people think they need to forget about it.
But when you forget about it, what happens is like this. Let's say you have this trauma, right? This fist is a trauma. So when you try to forget about it, what you do is you put it under the rug. So now the rug's like this, and it kind of has this big bump. And so what happens is there's emotion attached to this trauma. There's some type of emotion, there's anger, there's fear, there's some type of emotion that's trapped with it, that's attached to it. So whenever we think about it, we think about that emotion, right? So then naturally we think, okay, well, I'm just gonna not think about it, so this way I don't have to feel that emotion. But what happens is, even if we don't think about it, that emotion is still with us. That emotion hasn't let go yet because we haven't actually let go of the trauma. So here's what I mean. That trauma is still staying under the rug.
The body keeps the score.
And that under rug is in our subconscious mind, AKA in our body. Okay, it's trapped inside of our body. If it's not trapped inside of our body, that means we wouldn't have experienced a trauma. Because traumas are basically when we have an experience in our life and we have an elevated feeling in our body. Our emotions jumped up, our emotions spiked up, and then we paid attention to what's happening. We go, whoa. So if it's a really great event, we don't call it a trauma, we call it a awesome event. We call it a badass experience. Whoa, that was such an experience. But what determined that being such a great experience? Your emotions. Because you're experiencing things every single day, but nothing special about it. But when you have an elevated emotion, suddenly you go, whoa, this experience is awesome. And now this experience gets imprinted in. If it's a great experience, you may call it an experience. If it's a bad experience, you call it a trauma. So elevated emotion is what happens. That's how it gets stored. So if we want to release it, we got to release that emotion. We got to release that energy, because emotion is just energy in motion. And so when we don't release it, what happens is it gets trapped in our body. It gets trapped in different areas. Sometimes it gets trapped in our organs. Sometimes it gets trapped in different parts of the body. Like we hold a lot of trauma sometimes in our upper back. So we feel like we're always carrying. There's a lot of tension there.
And by the way, that's like another way to conceptualize that is like he's saying, right? Like you're always carrying this extra weight or like this added level of stress on your body. And as soon as you're able to release that, you're going to be a lot more free, a lot more relaxed all the time. Because a lot of people are always, they don't realize it because they're used to it. But because of like the trauma or some of the stress that they're under, they're always in this state of like, they're tighter, more anxious. It's like they're constantly in like a fight or flight state of mind, right? And that's supposed to be for emergencies, right? So like you might think like, oh, it's not that deep, bro, or it's not that intense, but it's because you're used to it, right? So all I'm saying is that anything you can do to release these things, it's going to make you feel so much better in your day-to-day life. Just much more healthier and even able to go through relationships in a much more healthy way too.
Lower back, hips, stomach, all kinds of different places. It can be.
It's essentially like poisoning your own body, right? Like holding on to like anger, fear, resentment, frustration. It's like you're holding on to like a scalding hot like rock, or you're drinking the poison rather than just throwing it away, right? You're just like you're letting this thing continue to affect you.
Like certain scars, we have traumas there because that energy, we felt a lot of pain in that area and we never released the pain. And now that's a scar, but it's not just a physical scar. It's a pain that's in this area that is now in form of energy. So it just feels a little uncomfortable, but it may not be very loud because you're already used to it. You don't know that it's there until it's gone. Suddenly you feel incredible and you realize that it was there. That's what happens a lot of times. So we got to go ahead and disassociate the emotion, that energy, to the event. So here's something that you can do. Okay. So this is a big subject in its own, but I'm gonna give you a really quick way, a quick, simple explanation of how that works. When you think about this event and you tell it to somebody, when you tell it to somebody, you may cry, you may get upset, you feel that emotion stir up right away, right? Anytime when you guys are gonna talk about your traumas, talk about your bad experiences, you feel it. So what you can do is you can go ahead and talk about it, and you feel it. And then afterwards, you do a breathing exercise. Breathe, clear it, and get your energy to feel better. And then you talk about it again. And you can go ahead and repeat the exact same thing that you just did. Just repeat it. Don't try to.
By the way, I haven't tried something he's not talking about it necessarily right now, but he might use it for that kind of technique, like the breathing. Because I mean, there's you could just do it like normal, like deep breaths like normal. But you probably saw part of the video earlier where he was like, it looked like he was doing some kind of like intense breathing. I think that had something to do with some kind of breath work. Breath work's a little bit of like a different technique or different style of meditation. And what I've noticed actually, like I've seen a couple of videos regarding people teaching breath work. And the interesting part about it is not always, but every once in a while you'll see someone who got into it, right? And their body actually started experiencing those traumas from their past. Sometimes they were like really intense traumas, and they're actually like started like shaking a little bit or crying, right? And like they were like essentially like releasing the trauma, and it like looks to be like a little bit of like an intense experience at first, and then they finally let go and release it, and they're very like happy that they went through it and were able to get rid of that, right? Because it's exactly what he's talking about. You need to actually be able to breathe through it, feel through it, because if you don't, it's just going to stay there under the rug this whole time.
Make it any different, just repeat it the best you can. What will happen is if you repeat that same thing, for example, hey, when I was 7 years old growing up, this thing happened, this person walked in the room, I said this, all this stuff.
I'm glad that he said that too, like the thing about like the 7-year-old, because basically he hasn't used this term yet, but a lot of people talk about like addressing your inner child, and you can do that with other people when maybe they get frustrated or upset, and you can do it with yourself too, right? So basically what he's talking about is like, this thing that happened in your past, like you can essentially treat them as yourself now, like the best self, the version of you, like helping you move forward, and you can just think of them like inner child, right? Like they come up to you, they're crying, they're breathing heavy, they're shaking a little bit, and you can just hug them, right? Or like, put your hand on their shoulder and just say like, hey, like what's wrong? Like, hey, like it's okay. Like, don't worry, it's okay. Like I got this, right? And you're essentially showing them like yourself, like your inner child, like, don't worry, I got this. Like, I'm here for you. Like, we're just going to feel through this. And funny enough, I don't know too much about it, but I've seen some videos floating around. I've never really watched any, but it's like people, it might be a part of this too, right? Like you can see them like hugging themselves, and it's at some sort of like, meditation style retreat. And I think it's related to this sort of thing.
Repeat the same thing. What will happen is that you will add in just a little bit extra detail without even trying. Because your eyes is closed and you're envisioning this. You're envisioning this and you add in a little extra detail, and then you'll feel it again. And then afterwards you say all the way to the very end, and then go ahead and clear the energy again, because the energy just got built up again. Ooh, I just got upset. Okay, breathe,
Mm-hmm.
release it. You do like 20 breaths, nice and deep. 20 breaths, okay, now it's gone. You feel a little better, you do it again. You say the same thing again from the beginning all the way to the end. Now you bring in that little extra element again. Not because you wanted to, but because you're visualizing, and the visions are becoming clear. When it becomes clear, as you're doing this process, every single time you do this, what you're doing is you are getting yourself to relive this event. But you are reliving this event as you right now, not you in the past. So you in the past experienced it. Whoa, it's so crazy. But now you, right now, you know more, you're smarter, you're more intelligent, you have more experience. And when you are reliving it now and you are seeing all these things happening, every time when you talk about it and you experience it, it's less scary. The first time it was scary and you feel it. But every time you do it and you feel the energy, you release it, and then you feel it again, and then you release it, and you keep doing it over and over and over and over again. And so eventually, your eyes are closed, you're going through this process. Oh yeah, when I was 7 years old, da 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 da. You said the whole thing in very clear detail, like you're there describing it. The wall is this color, there's a chair over here, that person was wearing blue jeans and a red shirt. But you don't feel afraid. You don't feel any emotions about it now. It's just something that happened. But there is no emotional charge around it. That's how you really overcome traumas. But what it does is it requires you to face it like that. And every time when you face it, it's like scary in the beginning, but you can clear it, clear it, clear it, clear it, clear it. So you can do that like 15 times.
Well, and that's why a lot of people like they say like, oh, you're running from your fears or you're running from your traumas, right? It's like, you know, they're sweeping it under the rug like you talked about and avoiding it for a long time, rather than doing this, facing your fears and feeling through it. Because that way you'll be able to remove it, right? And be like, oh, like, even if I remember that thing, it doesn't affect me anymore.
20 times, however many times it takes. If you do it with a partner, somebody can go ahead and be there to go ahead and ask you questions. So this way you can go ahead and talk about it. So let's say me and you are right here. If we're in a coaching call, we will do that. I ask you, okay, tell me what happened. You tell me, and I go, okay, breathe, clear. Tell me what happened again. And we'll do this as many times as we need it. Boom, boom, boom. 20 times later, tell me what happened again. You can just tell me and you're nonchalant about it. It's gone. Okay. That's how you really clear traumas. You don't forget about it. At this point, when you don't have that emotional tie to it anymore, so now it's like, okay, cool. So you feel good about it? Yeah. You accept it? Yeah, I accept it. Okay, cool. It's just the event that happened, just like all the events in our life. All right. You learned a lot from it. Oh, yeah, learned a lot. Okay, cool. All right. So now you don't have to think about it anymore, but you didn't forget. There's just no emotions attached to it anymore. So now that doesn't affect you. You see, that emotion that was attached to it that you didn't think about is also affecting your current life right now. That's why you want to remove it. Because when you remove it now, you don't have the emotion attached to you. So you're able to go and do things now more freely. And suddenly you're going to feel lighter in your body. You'll literally physically feel lighter in your body. You feel like weight has been removed, because it has. When we carry these emotional traumas, when we carry this emotion in our body actually becomes denser. It literally becomes heavier. Not on the scale, but energetically becomes heavier. Energy has density. And so when molecules are more closer together, the energy frequency is really low, our body will physically feel heavier for us. We stand on the scale, it'll feel exactly the same. But in our body, we feel heavy or we can feel light. This is why your density of your body changes with your emotions. You experienced this before, right? When you're angry, your body feels different, feels more heavy, right? It feels more dense. And when you're happy, it feels more lighter. But if you were to go and stand on the scale and that happens, you'll see that the scale doesn't change. It's exactly the same. So when you release it, you'll feel light, you'll feel free, and your mind will also be free as well. Your mind will suddenly be more expanded. You'll have more clarity. Suddenly you realize like you were thinking like this before, and now these borders are gone. And you're like, whoa, wow. And you're suddenly looking around like you're seeing for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, guys, like, cool guy. I really like his style. I mean, he has a good way of like articulating this. You know, like finally doing this self-improvement and healing so that you can help others, right? Not like for the validation of people or things like that, right? Just optimizing. I mean, obviously you can see it, right? The trajectory he's gone on, like always improving, you know, self-development, and not doing it from a place of scarcity, because he was before, right? Like validation and approval from others, you know, like wanting to be seen. Like that's almost like an inner child thing as well. I mean, and I think we've all had that, you know, like you know, it's actually like a biological thing too, right? Like we want approval of our community or our tribe, right? So we can essentially get along together, have great relationships, you know, continue the human race, right? Like all these sorts of things, support each other. And so, of course, right? I mean, the end of the day, like that self-improvement journey to start helping others is really what it's all about. So, I mean, that's why I like Mike. Funny enough, I like I said, I used to work out to his videos like 10, 12 years ago when I didn't have a gym membership. And I was actually in Bali a few months ago and I met him. Like, I knew someone who was nannying for Mike Chang and his family in his company. And I funny enough, I was working out at Mike Chang's home gym. It was like such a strange experience. Like I never expected to be in that situation. But like I was working out at his home gym outside, right? It's like very sunny, Bali, Indonesia, great weather. And then he pulled up with his wife and kid on their motorbike, and we had a really brief chat. You know, I hope to get the chance to meet him a little bit more one day. But super nice guy, obviously I'm very open to helping people, want you to optimize your inner health, your healing, your traumas, your body, right? So maybe check out some more of his videos, and I hope you're able to get something valuable from this video. I know it's a little bit of a longer one, but I hope it helps. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. You got this.